Hey everyone, George here and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about water changes. We're going to be talking about the science and the myth. Now there is a little bit of both. There's some science on this subject and there's some also a ton of myths surrounding water changes. We're going to clear that up today, no pun intended. Hang in there with me and we'll be right back. So when we're talking about water changes, as I said, there is some science involved here, but it's mostly myth. There is a ton of different ideas surrounding the reasons for doing a water change, how often you should do them, and there's a little bit of science involved here as well. First, we're going to talk about the science. If you have a well-cycled tank that is doing a good job of turning ammonia into nitrites and nitrites into nitrates, and those nitrates are below a certain level, which is debatable in the hobby, but if those are acceptable, then your water is in good shape. Now, that does not mean that you don't have to do water changes. The science side of this would be that the cleaner, the more filtered water that you have in your aquarium, the better off your aquarium is going to be. Now, what you're looking at right now is a tank that is a perfect example of a good quality tank that has water changes that are done on a regular basis, and the water is absolutely in pristine shape. Now, just because the water is clear does not mean, however, that the water is clean. And I want to make sure that we understand that, and there is a differentiation between those two things. In other words, just because your water looks clean doesn't mean that it is. The only way that you're going to know that is to test it. And I'm going to give you a couple of hints on the best way to test your water to make sure that you understand that your water can be put on a schedule, and if you use that schedule and you see that your water between changes is stable, then that schedule can be something that you can keep doing and maintaining on a regular basis as long as you have changed nothing in your tank and you are keeping up on the other maintenance involved in your tank. What does that mean? Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about the different things that affect water quality and what would make you have to change your water more frequently. So we talked a little bit about the science of when you should do a water change. Now let's talk about the myths surrounding water changes. A lot of people believe that you have to do a water change 2 or 3 times a week, a quarter of your water, 50% of your water. There's a lot of different ideas on when a water change needs to be done. Now, I would put it to you this way. As I said, if you have a stable environment, you have good filtration that you're maintaining very well, and you have not added or done anything to your tank that would involve adding to your bio load, you can keep a pretty regular schedule and be reasonably assured that your water changes are working for you. The bottom line is, if you add fish to your tank, or if you change things in your tank, such as the kind of filtration that you're using, or if you have used different chemicals of some kind, such as medications and that sort of thing, of course, water changes are going to have to be done more frequently. But if you have a stable environment where you're keeping your filtration system clean and you have not added anything to your tank, you can keep a schedule that is reasonable for you without driving you crazy. Now, one of the things that I like to say, and I've said this before, is just because your water looks clean doesn't mean that it is. And this means that you occasionally should take the time to do some kind of test and water checks to see that the parameters in your water are done occasionally, so that you know exactly where you're at on water changes and the quality of your water. If you have 0 ammonia, 0 nitrites, and you have nitrates that are within the boundaries that are acceptable to whatever your beliefs are, and your fish are healthy, and you again have not added or subtracted anything from your filtration system, you can figure out within just a few weeks exactly where you need to be on keeping your tanks water changes on a schedule that makes it easy for you, and it does not have to require something where you just are going crazy. Now, if you absolutely feel like you want to do 2 water changes a week, I can tell you this: sometimes too many water changes can create problems as well. You can interrupt the cycle in your tank by not having enough beneficial bacteria in there. If you have a well-cycled tank and you are doing something such as a couple of water changes, maybe a quarter, twice a week, and it's been working for you forever, then don't change it if it isn't broken. But do not change the way you do your water changes unless you change something in your tank. And that's the simple, honest truth about water changes. Now, the myths behind some of this stuff are incredible as well. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the myths and what I think are some of the craziest things I've heard out there that a lot of you are probably wondering, where does this stuff come from? When we come back, we're going to talk about that. So hang in there with me. We'll be right back. So the first thing you want to do is unplug any outlets to your pump and your heater to make sure that those are off when you're taking and removing any water from your tank. Then get a bucket. In this particular case here, I'm using a 2-gallon bucket. So I'll be taking 2 gallons out at a time to remove the water from this tank. So after removing as much water as you think is necessary for your water change, the next thing you want to do is put some kind of siphoning mechanism in that will clean your gravel as well as picking up any food that is remaining at the bottom of your tank so that you do not have leftover food sitting there. And that's very important in the cleanup process. So at this point here, if you are going to be also doing a maintenance on your canister filter, that would be the time to start disassembling that and making sure that you are cleaning all the sponges and anything else in there. Always use water from your aquarium when you do this. Do not use tap water. Also, any air hoses that are in your tank, remove them at this time so that you can do your gravel cleaning or sand cleaning in this particular case here. Now, as you can see, this gasket that is around the edge of this canister is the seal on here. So when you remove this, be careful not to damage that. That can happen. So when you're either removing the top or replacing it, make sure that the gasket, when you put the top back on, is also sealed very well, because if you do not do that, you're going to have a real mess on your hands. And I've had experiences with that, and I know that can be a real problem. So at this point here, if you need to use a sponge to clean your glass, this would be the time to do that. Also, if you need to change any carbon or anything in the back of your tank, that would be time to do that as well. So before you start filling your tank back up, always use a good water conditioner such as Prime by Seachem, which is a product that I really like a lot. At this point here, you would start filling your tank as much as you need to top it off, or to refill it from the change that you made. You can do that either with a pitcher or you can do it with a hose. So that's really about it as far as doing a water change. It's not hard to do at all, and it's so essential to keeping your fish very healthy and keeping the water in your aquarium clean. As I said, nitrates that build up in an aquarium are killers over the long term of your fish. You want to always try to keep those nitrates as low as you possibly can, but keep your cycle in good condition as well. You should always have 0 ammonia, 0 nitrates, and a probably 25 parts per million on the nitrates or below that, and your fish will be fine. So thank you for joining me today. As I said, there's myths out there about doing water changes. Some people don't even think that you need to do them. That is a totally ridiculous idea. You know, like I said at the beginning of this video, fish poop and pee in that tank, and there's no place for that to go other than what your filter can take care of, and your filter cannot keep up with that over a long period of time. So it's essential, as I said, to make sure that you are doing these water changes. Schedule them, because it makes it so much easier. If you have multiple tanks, split it up in the week so that you don't have to do them all in one day. But the bottom line is that if you do those water changes, you are going to have a very clean and pristine environment for your fish to live in, and your fish are going to thrive, and you're going to be really happy in this hobby. And I think that's one of the things that makes people get out of this hobby quicker than anything else, and that is maintenance on their aquariums. But it does not have to be difficult. Again, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that I covered everything you need to know about water changes, the science part of it, and some of the myths behind how dramatic you need to be about water changes, and some of the crazy ideas that are out there about water changes in general. So leave your comments down below. Hit that like button. I appreciate it. The channel's growing, and I really appreciate that. But leave your comments down below if you have ideas on water changes, or if you just like the video, and make sure you share with your friends. Thank you so much for joining me today. We will see you on the next one. Until then, we're out of here.